This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. If you're anything like me, a typical conversation in your day-to-day life probably goes something like this. Hey, have you heard of Mike's podcast? Yes. How good is it? Really good. Oh, I really want to support that guy. He's so funny and independent, so I'm sure he could use any support he can get. Well, you can do that on patreon.com/Radio Mike. Oh, wow. What do I get in return? You get 2 bonus podcasts every week. Wow, I'm going to do that, strange anonymous stranger. Ah, well, it's me, Mike, the whole time. I fooled you. But still sign up. And that's why you should donate to my Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. Cancel your Netflix account and give me the money instead. We really need it. Thank you.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow.
Show your moves. Good news, everyone.
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Professor Mike Gonagool, and this is the inside of my mind. Of course, real name, Radio Mike, but every week on this show, if you've been listening for a while, thank you. If you're new, welcome. I do a different name up top. Sometimes I come up with them, sometimes suggested by listeners. That one was suggested by our Patreon supporter, Patrio Gannonbort. Thank you so much for your participation, Patrio Gannonbort. My name, as I said, Radio Mike. Writer and producer here in Melbourne, Australia, just trying to make his way through life. Sometimes it's easier than other times. And this podcast, 20th Century Boy, what's it all about? Mike, what's it all about? Tell us what it's all about. All right, I'll tell you. All right, tell us. We're waiting. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you now. Great, we're waiting. All right, here it is. It's the conversations you wish you were having about the stuff that no one else cares about. That's what this podcast is, okay? Everything you're thinking, and none of those mainstream exclusivity deal corporate commercial podcasts are talking about this shit, okay? They're all talking about the mainstream stuff. Yeah, it's the Kardashians. Bloody this, whatever. This stupid news story. Taxes. Interest rates. I'm a millennial. I'll never own a property, right? That's the shit. If you want to hear that shit, you go and listen to one of those podcasts. This podcast, it's the stuff that no one else cares about. It's the stuff that you find yourself seeing and you're like, man, I really want to talk about that with someone, but no one else will talk about it with me, right? And if you want to hear stuff like that, then keep listening to this show every week. I implore you to. You're very welcome here, okay? For me, it has been a very busy few weeks, but I'm feeling pretty good, and I think we've got a good show ahead of us today. So looking forward to getting into it. Nothing huge on this week's show. I do want to put out there that the 360 rule still exists. Long-time listeners of this show will know that 20th Century Boy is actually the only winnable podcast. You can actually win this podcast. There is no other podcast in the world that you can win. The way you win the podcast is you have to see me in public while you are listening to the podcast, right? So there's a few criteria there. One, you have to see me in public. Advantage to Melbourne people, right? If you're in Melbourne, you have an advantage. Two, if you see me in public but you're not listening to this show at the time, you don't win. If you happen to be listening to this show at the time and you see me in public, show me your phone, show that you're listening, you've won the podcast. That's it. The podcast ends forever once you win it, right? And, you know, the reason it's called the 360 deal is because when you're listening to this right now, do a 360 on the spot, spin your head around, 360 degrees, see if I'm around, right? I probably won't be if you're listening in bed, in your bathroom, having a shower. I won't be there. But if you're listening in public, always do your 360. We'll always do it regardless. But the 360 the deal is still on. Other day, I was here in Richmond. I was on Bridge Road, and I shit you not, I genuinely thought the podcast was about to be won, because I was on Bridge Road, and a guy literally came up to me. He was at a tram stop, and he said, "Radio Mike." And I said, "Hey, mate." And he goes, and then he starts turning his phone towards me to show me something. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to win the podcast. This is it. It is happening right here, right now, right here. It is going down. He's about to win it. Turns out he was listening to the Hamish and Andy podcast, which is a common thing for me. You know, I do wish I got noticed a bit more for my work outside of Hamish and Andy, because most of the people that recognize me in person either recognize my voice from H&A, because I apparently have a very iconic way of speaking. To me, it's just me speaking. Or they just recognize my face from Hamish and Andy. I think it is very few and far between when someone has actually recognized me from this pod. It's definitely happened, but more often than not, it's just people knowing me from Hamish and Andy. So, little disappointing. Like, love being recognized. Come up to me if you see me. But yeah, you can win the podcast at any time. Guys, let's start off this week's show with one of these bad boys. All the write-ins that you sent in. You are welcome to get in touch with the show anytime, radiomikepod@gmail.com, or just DM me on Instagram at radio.mike, or leave a voicemail so we can play it on the show. You can also call 1-800-438-353. There's lots of ways to get in touch. Last week I talked about how I find shoeies disgusting, the Australian act of drinking a beer out of a shoe. Disgusting. Do not want to drink out of a sweaty shoe. Radio Legbot, long-time listener of the show, haven't heard from him for a while. He sent in this he calls it a solution to the problem.
Mike, I'd like to offer a solution for everyone. It's me, Radio Legbot. You don't like shoeies. Hear me out. I'm Mikey. We take you, we put you on a 45-degree angle, we take off your shirt, someone sits at the bottom of your back, just above your ass, and then we pour a beer down your back. They drink it. It's probably still more sanitary than a shoey, unless you've got a really sweaty fucking back.
Yeah, that's disgusting for the person, and also for me. It's kind of like that thing they do in, like, you know, when people are on holidays and they drink like shots off girls' boobs and belly, out of girls' belly buttons and stuff, or guys, I guess. But no, we won't be doing that. An anonymous person, couldn't figure out who this was. You didn't leave your name, but welcome to the radio family anyway. Left this message about shoeies, which I appreciated.
Under my last 10% on my mobile, had to ring, say, 100% against shoeies. It's disgusting.
Really appreciate you calling the hotline with 10% on your mobile just to tell me that you were against shoeies. Radio Brad, he wrote in, "Hey Radio Mike, short-time listener, first-time DMer, first time I've corresponded with any podcaster before. I've been a long-time listener of Hamish and Andy and also Tofop, of course you are, they're much more successful podcasts than this one, and figured I'd give your podcast 20th Century Boy a listen. Your recent Nick Offerman episode just had so many clicks for me that I thought I'd shoot you a message. I totally agree that Banjo-Kazooie is one of the greatest games ever made. I absolutely loved that game and have very fond memories of playing it as a kid. I, however, am not Nick Offerman, so this perhaps carries less importance. I actually still have my Nintendo 64, and a few years back while at uni, I got it out and went through and beat Banjo-Kazooie, which I was never able to do as a kid, and 100% collected everything. The game is still tough, but holds up so well today. Anyway, just wanted to say hi and say that you seem like a cool dude. I am. Keep up the good work with all the podcasting universe, mate, and have a nice day." Thank you so much, Brad, for your first. Be more like Brad. Hashtag be like Brad. Right into the show, guys. Would love more stuff like that. And Radio Hugh Robertson, welcome to the RF. Very active with me on Twitter, at It's Radio Mike. Tweet about the show, but Hugh has emailed in. "Hey Mike, just some thoughts after listening to the latest episode. We had a proper orchestral group come to our school. I don't remember everything they played, but I do recall the Star Wars theme song, which sounded fucking amazing in a hall. Also, I would have to say that Rock Lobster by the B-52s is one of the greatest songs ever. Yeah, that is a good song. Would also love to see a film on Chester Bennington. I asked a few weeks back when I was talking about the Michael Jackson biopic, which I still can't believe is happening. I asked who you'd want to see a biopic about. And Hugh says, Chester Bennington, I feel like it would be pretty sad given the trauma he endured, but I'd still want to see his life played out on screen. Chester Bennington, of course, being the lead singer of Linkin Park, who sadly took his own life maybe 5 years ago. I don't think we would ever get that, just because I don't think, like, you look at the ones they are making, you know, Bohemian, like Freddie Mercury, Michael Jackson, Who was the other one? Elton John. Like, they're all just such I don't even know who you would do. Like, yeah, I said maybe Ed Sheeran could get one, but it'd just be boring because he just seems like a normal dude. Maybe Harry Styles, Bowie, like all of those people. But yeah, that's an interesting choice. Guys, I was going to say this earlier, but I didn't get round to it. But a few weeks ago, I didn't actually talk about it on the pod, but I did I just listened to an episode of the radio show that I did at Sin FM, which is the community radio station that I started doing community radio at back in 2016. And I listened to an episode of it. It was called The Yellow Family. It was about The Simpsons. I did it with one of my mates from school, Tom, and T-Money. Long-term listeners will be familiar with T-Money. He did that show with me. And it was really interesting to listen to. It still exists on Spotify and you can still listen to it. So if anyone is interested in hearing where this all began, it was 2016 and I did this radio show with my mate. Go listen to it if you want. See how I've developed as a broadcaster, I suppose. But I was listening to it and I was pleasantly surprised about how much of that show, of the episode I listened to where we were talking about the Simpsons movie, just how much of it actually kind of still feels relevant. Not relevant, but it really does feel like the precursor to this show. Like a lot of like opening stings and just raves about certain things. If you want to listen to that Simpsons movie episode, I genuinely think you will see a lot of parallels to what this show has become and the style of show I was making. And it made me remember one segment in particular that we used to do on that show. And it's a segment that I definitely want to bring back because I think it's a really fun segment. So I'm going to do it now. And it won't be every week. It'll just be whenever I've got one. This was a segment we used to do on the show, the radio show. The segment was called It's My Gripe. A gripe, of course, being a problem, an irking, something about the world that was annoying me that week. And I've remastered the intro, I've redone it, I've made it fresh, I've made it new. So for the first time on this podcast and for the first time in probably 6 or 7 years, I'd love to do one of these. It's my gripe, it's now or never. Not gonna have a podcast forever. Of course, the original was not going to have a radio show forever, but this one is now not going to have a podcast forever, which I do dispute. I would like to continue doing this podcast until I die, or a podcast. I don't know if it's necessarily this one. Let me know if you will still listen to this podcast in 2060. That'll give me an indication of whether to persist or not. It's my gripe, guys. I've got a big gripe. It's time for one of Mike's infamous gripes. Mike's gripes. Guys, I've got a big gripe, and I think this is going to be shocking to a lot of people. And my gripe is the following. Chips have officially jumped the shark. I'll say it again. Chips have officially jumped the shark. Chips have gone overboard. Chips have lost the plot. Chips in Australia have just totally lost it. Now, hear me out. And for international listeners, I realise there's a discrepancy of worldwide in English-speaking countries about what chips are. So I'm going to put it this way. In Australia, any potato-based snack is basically a chip. Whether that's fries from Macca's, KFC hot chips that you get at the footy, or packet chips that you get like from a supermarket, which I believe in the UK are called crisps. I think the UK, you call them crisps. I don't know what they call them in USA. I know we have who's our mate from Denver that we have that sometimes writes in.
Denver sucks ass.
If you can clarify what you call chips, but I want everyone to be on the same page here. The chips I am referring to are what the British would call crisps. I'm not talking about hot chips. I'm talking about crisps, crunchy chips you might have, in your lunchbox for school, a little packet lunchbox for school, just so everyone's on the same page. I have noticed this getting out of control. Chips are out of control in Australia. I've noticed it slowly getting to this point, but I believe there may be a chip war going on. Because, and I hate to use this phrase, but back in my day, back when I was a kid, there was like 3 or 4 flavors of chips, right? There was plain salted chips, salt and vinegar, there was light and tangy, chicken, and then maybe towards like when I was in high school, later high school, you might have had like sour cream and onion, you know, just, you know, those were basically it. And they were all color-coded as well. Blue was plain, pink was salt and vinegar, green, light green was light and tangy. I don't even know if light and tangy exists anymore. Can someone confirm that as well? There was chicken was dark green, and then cheese and onion was, or whatever, sour cream and onion was yellow. These are the Smith's Chips brands, which is one of the biggest chip brands in. And then you started getting some more like competition, right? You started getting kettle chips, a bit more fancy. Now you have Red Rock Deli chips, also a little bit more fancy, right? And, you know, Red Rock Deli and Kettle brought out your honey soy chicken chips, right? And they were a staple. Honey soy chicken, great chip, right? Then I feel like there was a while there where we were like, yeah, there's a few more flavors. We don't need to get too crazy with this, right? Basically, at the end of the day, most of us just want a chip, a salted chip, maybe a bit of flavoring or sweetness to it, but we don't need to get crazy. Guys, chips have gone too far. I've been noticing it more and more, and I had to talk about it on this podcast because the flavors of chips now at supermarkets have simply gone too far. They are simply flavors that I cannot even begin to imagine how you could possibly get all of this flavor into a single chip. For example, I just went to the supermarket to take a bunch of photos. I didn't buy anything out of spite. Kettle, I think, are the main offenders of this, okay? Kettle has, what I'm reading is the Native Flavor Collection. Native Flavor. I guess they're Australian-based flavors. Kettle. This is a flavor of chip, just a reminder. Kettle. Finger lime and Tasmanian pepper leaf. I'm sorry. What? Is it lime and pepper? Why does it have to be finger lime and Tasmanian pepper? First of all, lime and pepper? What a bad flavor. Second of all, why are these flavors so wanky? Kettle, again, Native Flavor Collection. You're not going to believe what I'm about to say. And this should not be in a chip. Chips should be plain flavors. Just simple flavors. Listen to this. Listen to this and tell me whoever works at Kettle and is coming up with these flavors is not a wanker. Kettle. Kakadu plum and Australian aged cheddar. What is Kakadu plum and what is it doing in my chip? I don't want a plum flavored chip. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm not patriotic enough that I don't want a plum from Kakadu and cheddar that's been aged in this country in my chip. I'll continue. Kettle Native Flavor Collection. Oh, dear God. I cannot believe this one. Lemon myrtle and roast chicken. The only myrtle I know is the girl in Harry Potter who cries in the bathroom because she's dead. Now she's in a chip with lemon. Lemon myrtle and roast chicken. What is that? Don't try and tell me you've managed to squeeze the flavor of a roast chicken that I could get down from a chicken and chip shop into a potato crisp. It is not possible. You are not Willy Wonka, who has the gobstopper that can make you feel like you're having 3 meals. We are not up to this technology, and I know this is not going to taste like roast chicken. Finally, no, second to last, Smith's, also getting into the wank territory. Smith's less wanky, more just ambitious, okay? Smith's Double Crunch. Cheesy garlic bread. Okay, you know what the nice part about garlic bread is, Smith's? When you bite into it, it's cheesy and soft and stretchy and the cheese melts in your mouth. It's not crunchy. Crunchy garlic bread is no good. It's overcooked. You want a soft, cheesy, doughy, stretchy garlic bread. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. But this might be the worst one. And I was going to buy all of these, but then I thought it was a waste of money because I will not have any of these wanky chips, and I stand by it. Okay, you will never, ever see me eating a wanky chip. But then I saw this, and I just had to buy it to show you it as evidence that this exists. Okay? This flavour of Smith's chips is Smith's Subway Meatball Sub. Subway Meatball Sub. It's a collaboration with Subway, and they really must believe that inside this chip, it tastes like eating a meatball sub from Subway with meatballs, tomato-based sauce, mozzarella, tomato slices, lettuce, and possibly some other ingredients. Yep, there's pickles in there. And I'm going to open them right now, live taste test, because I guarantee you it does not taste like that, okay? I'm just going to have one. This cost me like $5. All right, here we go. Okay. 1, it's disgusting. 2, it literally tastes like nothing. You cannot tell me that this is what eating a Subway meatball sub tastes like. Pathetic. Smiths, Kettle, all of you, go back to basics. It's getting out of control. And that's the first in a while edition of It's My Gripe, it's now or never. Not gonna have a podcast forever. Send in your gripes. If you'd like me to voice one of your gripes, send it in for an It's My Gripe. Okay, any gripe you see, whatever you're griping with, and then we can let over on the TCB Pod Instagram at TCB Pod, daily memes and clips from the show, we can put surveys up, polls up on the stories and get a definitive result on your gripe, okay? Definitely do that. Feel free to voice message in a gripe as well. Okay, got a bunch to get through and the chip thing went for a while. I've spoken a lot about this show, about my celebrity crush. I also realised, if you've listened to this show for a while, you will know that my biggest celebrity crush in the world is Hilary Duff. Hilary Duff, Lizzie McGuire, she is just one of the best adult child stars. Like, she aged well. And when I say that, I'm not talking about her looks, I'm talking about her, like, emotional maturity, you know, because you've got your Macaulay Culkins, you've got your, I'm sure there are many others, your Aaron Carters, right? You've got your child stars who grow up and they can't handle it. They can't fucking handle it, okay? Hilary Duff, child star, really famous, huge, bam, goes quiet for a bit. She's back now and she seems very well put together. And that's what I like to see in a child star. That's why I like Hilary Duff. Not to mention she is incredibly attractive. I think she's gorgeous. I think she's very bubbly. Hilary, give me a call. I love Hilary Duff. And I watched one of her movies the other week, A Cinderella Story. Peculiarly similar to the story of Cinderella, the fairy tale. That might have been the point. But really enjoyed that movie because I just love Hilary Duff so much. And I've also been watching her in How I Met Your Father, the How I Met Your Mother spin-off, in which she plays the main character. Again, blows it out of the park. Hilary Duff, my hero. And one thing I think has faded from public consciousness, I want to bring this back into public consciousness. Hilary Duff had a music career. A lot of us will remember, of course, the Lizzie McGuire movie, Hey Now, this is what you... A lot of us will remember that. I want to bring this song back into public consciousness because it was a banger. It still, to this day, is a banger. And that song, Hilary Duff's classic song, So Yesterday. Absolutely incredible song. Hilary, I'm assuming she was very young when she wrote it. Beautiful song. Amazing song. Hilary is amazing. My favourite part is actually in the verses when she does this. Change your life if you want it. You can change your clothes if you want it. Love those if you wanters. You can if you wanna. You can apply it to everyone. You can win this pod if you wanna. Gotta listen to it and see me if you wanna, right? I love that. I love the if you wannas. I love justifying everything she's saying with a if you wanna.
Change your life if you want it.
And I want to revitalize this song. I want this to come back into public consciousness because, right? Because Hillary is amazing and because it's a great song. And we have a history on this show of revitalizing classic forgotten songs. Do not try and tell me that I did not revitalize Sean Kingston's entire career with by repopularizing his song Me Love. Absolute classic. So please do me a favor this week and spin a bit of So Yesterday by Hilary Duff. I'd really love to see it rise up the charts, and I think this podcast can make it happen. I'm going to add it to the official playlist of the podcast on Spotify. Ask me for a link if you can't find it. 20th Century Boy will be right back. If you're enjoying this podcast and you want to hear more from me, jump on the Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike, and you get the Overflow podcast, which is up at the exact same time as this podcast every week. It's basically an extra 15 minutes that the non-Patreons don't get. So if you're non-Patreon and you want to listen to that, jump on the Patreon. You can also just buy the episode for $1 if you send $1 to paypal.me/itsradiomike. This week on the Overflow, I am talking about, and I've never told this story before, I'm talking about my Hard Quiz audition. I auditioned for the TV show Hard Quiz. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm going to, only on Patreon. Sign up, there's a whole bunch of bonus content there, and I would love any support. Again, this is an independent podcast, it's all self-produced, and we currently have 70 Patreons, and I'd love to get it to 80. Me and Pat have agreed that if we get, I think, 80 Patrons, we're going to do a 5-part mini-series exclusive to Patreon, where Pat interviews me as different guests that I'm doing impersonations of, including Jack Sparrow and Shrek. So if you want to hear that, let's get to 80 Patreons and we will make that series. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show.
My fellow Americans, I'd once again like to remind you that I did not have sexual relations with Radio. I simply love his podcast, 20th Century. Now I need to go back to work for the Americans.
Moving forward, and still in the music world, I suppose, I listened to the new album from the Gorillaz, which just came out. It's called Cracker Island. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Gorillaz because I actually feel like, and if, of course, if you're not familiar with the Gorillaz, which I feel like everyone must be in some capacity, of course, they are almost definitely most well known for what I would argue is one of the most unique and best songs ever written, which is Feel Gooding. And I think everyone would be familiar with that song. But then again, it came out in like 2006, and I know lots of young people listen to this show, so maybe you don't know. That song was a really big deal. I think... And I love the new Gorillaz album. I talked about it on Mike Listens, at mike.listens on Instagram and TikTok if you want to see music and album reviews pretty much every day. I wanted to talk a bit more about the Gorillaz as a band because what I think is interesting, I think they're so interesting and maybe not many people really know how the Gorillaz works because as a band... The Gorillaz was kind of like a side project started by Damon Albarn, who was the frontman for Blur, most of whom will know from song 2, Woohoo, and I feel heavy metal, right? And the Gorillaz are like a virtual band. Like they have it was all about, I kind of always read it as being about eliminating the celebrity aspect to music by actually creating 4 characters, the Gorillaz, who were the band. And, you know, if you've seen the album covers, you will know the 4 kind of monkey looking characters who are sort of the Gorillaz. And creating a backstory of this fictional band called the Gorillaz who are playing the music and creating the music and star in the music videos, when really, of course, behind the scenes, it's Damon Albarn, who has collaborated with his friend who is a comic book artist and who designs all these characters, and then collaborating with a lot of like hip-hop artists and other artists and making the music together. And then on the live shows, of course, they perform it, but they also have the characters kind of there on screens as well, as if they're there playing the music. And I think what I find really fascinating about this is, one, I actually think because of this, lots of people don't actually know that Gorillaz is like a side project of Blur, and it probably, especially now, like it probably is bigger and more successful than Blur. But what I also think is that Blur kind of in the 90s was a very successful Britpop band who very famously competed with Oasis. And there was a big rivalry between Oasis and Blur in the 90s, a very big rivalry, like, you know, an aggressive rivalry, I suppose you could say. And I think ultimately Oasis at the time was the more successful band and kind of won that and sort of rubbed their nose in Blur that they were better, they were bigger, and etc. But I actually think that Gorillaz sort of proves that Damon Albarn was a more competent and successful kind of creative and creator and songwriter than the Gallagher brothers from Oasis. And I think because the Gorillaz was just so unique. Like, you listen to Feel Good Inc., and I just think that song is just unmatched in creativity. I genuinely think it is one of the most creative songs ever. The way it flows, the beat, the feel good, like that whole thing about it. But also just the creative visionary of Albarn to create that band as a virtual band and be like, I'm not the face of this band, right? And of course, like, music fans know it's him, but I think just creating something that is totally new and unseen, and to this day I can't really think of anyone who's done something similar. And of course you could make that argument that someone like David Bowie had, like, he had characters, like he had like Aladdin Sane and Ziggy Stardust, and he put on characters. And then you've got like My Chemical Romance, who had like the Black Parade, and then they did Danger Days, the Fabulous Killjoys, and they all got into character and they had personas for that album. And I find that really fascinating, but I've never seen someone do it so successfully on the same level as Gorillaz with their characters and the characters that they created. And they all have backstories and they all have relationships with each other. And even this week I saw Anthony Fantano, the Needle Drop, who's probably one of the biggest music critics in the world, particularly on YouTube, very popular. He did an interview with one of the Gorillaz, like as an animation, as a character, which I just find the whole thing really interesting. And it's lived on, and they've had some really good songs. I really like Superfast Jellyfish. Super fast, I come in last. They had a album a few years ago called Humans, and they had a song on that called Andromeda. And then on their most recent album, there's this fantastic song towards the end called Skinny Ape, which I love. I just love the experimentation, the creativity, the artistic merit to it all. And I think the reason that band lives on is because, one, it's Damon Albarn just collaborating with all these different artists. For example, Feel Good Inc. was a collaboration with De La Soul, who are the ones doing the rapping. But then, you know, Damon is the voice of the lead singer character of the Gorillaz, who I can't even remember his name. It's like 2D or something. They all have different names and designs and stuff. And I would love to know if anyone knows of any groups or artists or bands that are sort of like virtual or not real, or like there's like a persona about that band or that group, because I just find the whole thing with the Gorillaz is just so fascinating. And the new album's great. I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's like their 6th or 7th album, and they've probably now put out more albums the Gorillaz than Blur did, or maybe around the same. But yeah, I would love to know people's like thoughts on the Gorillaz more generally. I teased over in the Discord this week that I had sort of a big announcement on the pod today, and this is actually kind of a difficult one, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, and might come as a shock to some of you, but I think this is like the best kind of way. I've actually prepared a little statement, and yeah, I hope you guys don't react too weirdly to this, but I thought it was really important for me to put this out there. So I might actually just play some music under this just to fit the tone. Apologies if this is confronting. I've prepared a statement. I'm going to read it. Hi. This is a problem I've wanted to come clean about for a while now, and I thought this podcast was the best place to do it publicly, so I could be held accountable for this addiction. Addiction isn't easy and can really impact your life, but I think the first step to healing is admitting you have a problem. So this is me, Mike, telling the truth. I am an addict. I'm addicted to Hogwarts Legacy. When I first picked up the game from JB Hi-Fi 2 weeks ago when it came out, I never thought I'd be here now, reading this. The guy at the counter told me I'd bought the last copy of the game in stock, which leads me to believe that I might not be the only person suffering from this affliction. I can't stop playing Hogwarts Legacy. I can't stop casting Revelio every 5 steps. I can't stop doing side quests, like collecting the Demiguise moons for the caretaker at Hogwarts to learn higher levels of Alohomora, growing mandrakes and doing assignments with Professor Garlic, the herbology teacher, or just flying my broomstick around the world map and fighting enemies and solving puzzles. Sorry. It's almost like no matter what I do in my life, all my brain wants to do is play Hogwarts Legacy. It's like I'm looking into the mirror of Erised, and all I see is myself holding my DualSense controller, sitting on the couch, playing Hogwarts Legacy with nothing else to worry about. If you need any further indication of how this addiction has truly impacted me, then listen to this. The R2 button of my controller, which fires spells and magic in the game, actually broke from overuse. I literally was casting so much magic that the button on my controller broke. But like I said, coming clean is the first step to getting better. Thank you. Thank you, and I'll fade the music down, please. Thank you. Thank you. No, but seriously, I love Hogwarts Legacy so much. It's so fucking good. The more I play it, the more I love it. I'm going to do a full video. So many people have been asking my thoughts on it. I'm going to do a full video on YouTube just with my initial thoughts. I haven't finished the main story. I'm getting close to finishing the main story. And then from there, I'm doing so many side quests. I love it so much, okay? It is great. The more I've played it, the more I've fallen in love with it, and I cannot stop playing, hence the addiction thing. I genuinely feel like I'm addicted. I connected the remote play PS5 to my Mac so I could play it on my Mac while I was like doing other stuff. Anyway, absolutely crazy. But I did have one thing. As you heard, that was true. The R2 button of my PS5 controller broke because of too much magic casting in Hogwarts Legacy. My controller is broken. It is so annoying. I called PlayStation. It's out of warranty. They won't replace it. Costs $120 for a PS5 controller. That's a lot of money. Guys, over the years, we've had a lot of success pressuring brands into giving me free things. Just putting the pressure on, putting the heat on, right? This is a direct call out to PlayStation, EB Games, JB Hi-Fi, or anyone else in that world. My PlayStation 5 controller broke from using too much magic in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I am Mike and I do a podcast, and over the years I've had a lot of success asking brands for their help. I've made deals with Grilled, the burger chain, Domino's Pizza, Typo, the stationery shop, and many others. So, to all of those brands I mentioned, PlayStation, JB Hi-Fi, EB Games Australia, will one of you give me a new DualSense controller for my PS5? Everyone, I'm going to make this into a clip. I want you to tag them all in the comments. Tag PlayStation Australia. Tag EB Games Australia. Tag JB Hi-Fi Australia. Because this is going to be amazing publicity for whoever decides to give me a new DualSense controller, because mine broke from way too much magic. Please help me. I'm addicted to Hogwarts Legacy and I want to keep playing it with a not broken controller. What can you do for me? It's a call out to you. The ball is in your court. Some people say I'm being a weasel when I do stuff like that, but I personally don't see it that way. My controller broke. I'm seeking an opportunity to get a new controller. That's all there is to it. 2 more quick things for today. I was supposed to do this at the start, but I lost track. One of my friends from work, Karl, speaking of like old radio shows and stuff earlier, one of my friends from work, Karl, just sent me this hilarious blooper from a radio show he used to do. When you're doing a radio show, it's very important to turn off the microphones. That's a very crucial part of doing a radio show. When the ads are on or when the music's on, you got to turn your microphone off. The whole point of this is literally just me playing a funny blooper from my friend Karl, who was doing a radio show and forgot to turn his mic off in the song. And this is the result. So just enjoy this.
See you then from 4.
Here's another an Aussie artist. Tonight to finish. Colin's up after this.
I had a dream that someday.
Can I get a clear sentence out today? Fucking hell.
And I always knew I couldn't stay.
That went to airs. Fucking hell. Thankfully, this is a podcast, so you can really just say whatever you want, but I just find that so hilarious. He's so frustrated, but he forgot to turn his mic off. Okay, final thing for today. I noticed on YouTube, I saw a trailer for a new Peter Pan movie called Peter Pan and Wendy, coming out on Disney+. Another new Peter Pan movie. Peter Pan, of course, the boy who could never grow up. Really great character. Always enjoyed Peter Pan. Watched the new trailer, thought it looked woeful and terrible, right? And my biggest problem with the new Peter Pan movie is the 2003 Peter Pan movie exists. There is no other Peter Pan in my mind than the kid who played Peter Pan in the 2003 movie Peter Pan. I believe his name was Jeremy Sumpter. This is my Peter Pan. I don't want any other Peter Pan, okay? That movie was one of the best... correction. That movie is the best kids movie ever made. It has everything going for it. It has Jason Isaacs, aka Lucius Malfoy, playing Captain Hook in a role that is born for. One of his best roles. Captain Hook in that movie is amazing. Mr. Smee, amazing. Peter Pan, amazing. So many funny moments from that movie. So many great moments from that movie. The whole thing with Wendy and Pete. If you've not seen it, again, go and watch Peter Pan from 2003. It is the best kids movie ever made. The whole thing with the thimble and the kiss, and Wendy kisses Peter at the end, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. The whole I do believe in fairies bit, one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history. Move over, Shawshank Redemption guy spooning out the tunnel out of the jail. The I do believe in fairies scene from the Peter Pan movie in 2003 starring Jason Isaacs and Jeremy Sumpter is quite possibly the most iconic movie moment in the history of movies. I will not hear any different.
I do believe in fairies. I do.
And I see this new trailer and I can just see it's not my Peter Pan. It really isn't my Peter Pan, okay? That Peter Pan had a phenomenal soundtrack, okay? An absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. Maybe I'll put some of the audio in. I didn't prepare it, but maybe I'll put it in because there's this bit where It's so perfectly done where Peter Pan's like, come away with me to Neverland where you never have to grow up. And then Wendy goes, never is an awfully long time. And then the music starts playing and it's like, dun, 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 dun. And it's amazing. If you've not watched, I watched that movie probably 500 times as a kid, right? Everything about it. I'm sure it doesn't age well, but boy, oh boy, was that an amazing movie. And I don't care for this new Peter Pan. More like Peter, not a fan. Peter Pan, Peter, not a fan. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. If you have memories of the 2003, that movie needs a comeback. This is Mike's big show of comebacks. So Yesterday, Hilary Duff, Peter Pan from 2003, Chips, old school style Chips, all right? And a comeback of a new controller for my PlayStation. Let's finish up today's show by doing one of these. The plug! Harry Potter and the Boys returns very, very soon. No, what? What am I saying? Harry Potter and the Boys returned this week with Ruben Solo, his second ever appearance on the show, and a fantastic appearance at that. Here's a great little tidbit from that show.
The whole thing with the Horcruxes, I always thought you could have just buried one of them in the desert somewhere and you'd be good forever. Just make it a twig and put it in the forest. That's all you have to do.
Grain of sand, twig, a rock.
I guess he's just like a sentimental guy.
Had a great time recording with Ruben, and Sam will be back next week if you're looking forward to hearing Sam back on the pod. I also had Mikey D on last week. So coming up to the end of book 2 now, then we will start on book 3, and that podcast is just taking off. If you're not listening to it, you're an idiot. Patreon.com/Radio Mike. We are going to be revamping the Patreon soon, but if you're on it, stay on it. You get a bunch of bonus content every single week, including the TCB Overflow. I'm going to record it straight after this, and this week I am going to be talking about a story I haven't actually told before, and it's going to be exclusive to Patreon because I don't think I'm even supposed to talk about it, but I don't care. I am going to talk about when I auditioned for Hard Quiz, the TV show here in Australia. Obviously didn't get on, but I will tell you about my Hard Quiz audition. So jump on the Overflow right now. That'll be up right now. And the Pat and Mike show every Friday with me and producer Pat. That is one of my favourite bits of content that I make every single week. So I would love for you to go and check that out as well. That's pretty much it. Mike listens at mike.listens, Instagram and TikTok at radio.mike, Instagram and TikTok at tcbpod, Instagram, and then Twitter at It's Radio Mike. And the YouTube channel, of course, as well. If you want to see short clips from the show and everything like that, go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have grown nearly 500 subscribed. It's popping. It's absolutely popping. We're loving it. We're happy. We're all having a good time. PlayStation, give me a new controller. That's it. See you later. My name's been Radio Mike. This has been the inside of my mind, bitch. Hey guys, this post-roll ad is in the form of a song. I want to donate to this show, but I don't know how. So I am asking, how do I donate and support this show? Patreon, gotta donate it all, or just what you can afford. It would really help me, Patreon. Oh, it's the best way to support the show. I didn't put much effort into the song. Patreon/Radio Mike. It's the best way to support the show. $1 here and $1 there. It goes a long way. Gotta donate some. Patreon. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.